Episode 4, as we said, is going to be an introduction to tetrachord and scales. We know there's always going to be some vocabulary, so let's get to the vocabulary in this particular episode. Okay, so in this episode, we're going to be talking about tetrachord, as we said. Also, going to talk about what a scale is, what a scale degree is, the difference between a major scale and a minor scale. We're also going to mention the term diatonic, as we have in the past, chromatic, and enharmonic. All right. So first, we're going to talk about what a scale is. Okay. So a scale is a series of pitches using, in order, the 7 letter names of the musical alphabet, beginning on any one letter. So the C major scale would be C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. Just for reference, scale qualities, just as interval qualities, can include major and minor. Now, a couple of other scales we can talk about are the chromatic scale, pentatonic scale, and then whole tone scale. The whole tone scale is actually a pretty fun scale. It's actually one of my favorites. It's kind of like this. Let me transition over here to the keyboard. It's kind of like a dream sequence feel. Let me demonstrate for you on the keyboard, and you'll hear what I'm talking about. There are only two whole tone scales. So the way it works is, let me wrap this up. The way the whole tone scale works is you move in whole tones. So whole steps. There's no whole half or anything. No half steps. It's just whole steps. So if I start on, I can start on C or or C sharp. So C or C sharp. So the whole tone on C would be. Let's try this. No, that's not right. That's a half. Hear that? And so we're gonna try it on C sharp now. I never really took the time to figure out if there's actual proper fingering for that, but let me do that one more time. I'm gonna move my mic away from the keyboard so you guys can see that. So those are the different whole tone scales. All right. So now we want to get back to the scale talk. All right. Let me go back for a second. Excuse me. So now we talk about scale degrees. Now you'll see there's three different rows here in 8 different columns. So we're gonna look at the top row, and you'll see the terms tonic, supertonic, mediant, subdominant, dominant, submediant, leading tone, and tonic. And at the very bottom, you'll notice corresponding Roman numerals. So scale degrees, there are they can be numerical or they can be proper as initially mentioned: the tonic, the supertonic, mediant, subdominant, dominant, mediant, leading tone, and tonic. So the tonic of any key is the key note. So the tonic is always 1. So what does that mean? In the key of C major, the tonic or the keynote is C. In the key of C minor, same deal. The tonic or the keynote is C. We'll get into the difference between minors and majors in just a little bit. You'll also notice that these Roman numerals are capitalized, some are, and some are lowercase, and that 7 actually has a degree symbol next to it, which means diminished. We'll get into the difference between diminished and, yeah, we'll talk about diminished a little bit later. But these are the scale degrees. Okay, so now let's talk about the major scale. The major scale, the layout of the major scale is a series of 8 tones 8 being the pitch name repetition of 1, in which the relationship after the first scale degree, the tonic, the ketone, or the 1, is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Now, some of you may have heard that sequence, that sequence or that pattern, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. What that means is the way we figure out a major scale on any, no matter what the instrument is, the step is whole, whole, half, or the pattern is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half from the first scale degree. So key of C major, the tonic is 1, right? C, so then I'd go whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And there's the entire C major scale. Okay, so it would be 1, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. From no matter where you start. 1, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. That's C sharp. Same thing with D. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. This is the layout of the major scale. Any major scale, it doesn't matter where you start from. It's whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Okay? So now, again, here's the layout of that C major scale, all right, as laid out before. So I want to take a moment, actually, and just kind of show you what that looks like with the keyboard, if I may. All right, so let me actually just adjust this a second. How about we do this? No. All right, so it might be obstructing some of the text, but I kind of want to show you how it works in relation, okay? So the C major, you see that C major scale, the way it's notated is exactly how I'm going to play it. So that first C that you see is C4, the middle C, okay? And that's what it looks like. So then the D above it is there, E, F, G, A, B, C. That is the layout of what is written, of what is literally written right there. So I actually want to take another moment and I'm just going to show you how it is in relation to that treble again. So check this out. So now I want you to have a look at how the C major scale layout is. So remember, that middle C looks like that, right? Let's change that layout just a little bit. There's your D. This is how it would look for the right hand. Treble staff typically is written for the right hand. Remember that. All right. E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay, so that is the layout. That is the full layout of the major scale. Let me go ahead and edit it back so you can see it just a little bit better, because I want you to be able to see everything that I can see. All right, so we're going to try that one more time, y'all. How about we do this? Okay, so now we're going to show you C major. All right. There's the layout of C major for the right hand. Even though I played it with the left because I'm holding my mic with the right. But that typically when we write with treble staff, you're dealing with the right hand. All right. So let's switch and go on. So there's C major again. Let me take a moment, just one other moment here, and let's. I just want to show you the relationship one more time. Of the pattern of whole, whole, half, whole, whole, whole half. If I can, let's take a look over here and set that up for you. Okay, friends. So now, here we go. Okay. So here's the layout of C major. Once again, you have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. I'm going to play that. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So C to D is a whole step. D to E is a whole step. But E to F is a half step. Okay? F to G is a whole step. G to A is a whole step. A to B is a whole step. B to C is a half step. So whole, whole. So there's your whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And that is the pattern for any and every major scale. I'm being stupid now. All right, my friends. Let's keep it moving. So here's the G major scale. Notice there's one F sharp in there. There's one sharp. That layout is, so it's G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, just as before. G to A is a whole step. A to B is a whole step. B to C is a half. C to D is a whole. D to E is a whole. E to F sharp is a whole. That's why you have a sharp in there. All right? So that is the layout for G major. And there's the layout for A major. A, B, C sharp, because B to C sharp is a whole step. C sharp to D is a half step. D to E is a whole step. E to F sharp, whole. F sharp to G is a whole. And then back to A. Where's your half? There's your half. So now that we talked about major scales, let's talk about the tetrachord. The tetrachord is a series of 4 notes having the pattern of whole, whole, half. And I've taken the C major scale just to show out the layer of a tetrachord, or the layout of a tetrachord. So, I love this explanation, and it's going to be in depth, so follow me on this one. Every major scale is made up of 2 halves. The C scale has C, D, E, F, and G, A, B, C. Each half is called a tetrachord and is made up by a tone, and a semitone. There is a tone, whole step, linking the 2 tetrachords. All major scales can be divided into these 2 halves. In C major, the upper tetrachord is G, A, B, C. These notes make up the lower tetrachord of G major. The upper tetrachord of G major, D, E, F sharp, and G, is the lower tetrachord of D major. This change always happens when we add 1 sharp more to the new signature. In sharp keys, the upper tetrachord becomes the lower of the key with 1 extra sharp. Therefore, the lowest note of the tetrachord becomes the tonic, or the keynote of our new sharp key. In flat keys, the lower tetrachord becomes the upper tetrachord of the key with 1 extra flat. Therefore, the highest note of the lower tetrachord becomes the tonic or ketone of the new flat key. So let's go back to that earlier photo of C major. So notice here, you have the C major scale divided in half. So we said the tetrachord is whole, whole, half. So C to D is a whole. D to E is a whole. E to F is a half, okay? Now let's start on G. G to A is a whole. A to B is a whole. B to C is a half. So another whole, whole, half. So you have two tetrachords, and they're connected by a whole step, which would be the F to G. What's interesting, though, is if we divided the scale into tetrachords that we have here, you have a first tetrachord, which would be C to F, and the second, which would be G to C, or a lower tetrachord, as earlier mentioned, which would be C to F, or the upper tetrachord, which would be G to C. Notice the upper tetrachord, G, A, B, C. The upper tetrachord of C is the lower tetrachord of G major. The upper tetrachord of C major is the lower tetrachord of G major. Here is the G major scale divided into two tetrachords. So the first tetrachord of G major, G, A, B, C, is also the upper tetrachord of C major. But if we're following that same pattern of whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half for the major scale, so we continued on. We'll continue on from C, whole, 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 half, right? So that means the upper tetrachord of G is D, E, F sharp, G. So the two tetrachords of G major are connected at C and D. The upper tetrachord of G major happens to be the lower tetrachord of D major. So that lower tetrachord of D major, D, E, F sharp, G, now has an upper tetrachord of A, B, C sharp, D. Now if the first tetrachord, if the first tone, if the first note of the upper tetrachord is A, what do you think the key we're going to next is? A major. Notice every key that we've gone through has added a sharp. We've gone from F to F and C to now F, C, and G. A major. Those are the two tetrachords which make up the A major scale. So now we're talking about the minor scale. Now there are several minor scales. There are actually 3 different minor scales. Let's talk about them. For every major scale, there is a relative minor scale. The relative minor scale uses the same scale degrees as its major beginning on the 6th scale degree of the major, therefore becoming the first scale degree for the major's relative minor. For example, the 6th scale degree of C major is A. Therefore, A is the relative minor to C major, which means they have the same key signature. Relative minors are not to be confused, however, with parallel minors. Parallel minor keys begin with the same key note or tonic of the major. In other words, the parallel minor of C major is C minor. C major has no key signature, but C minor has 3 flats. The relative key to C minor is E flat major. The relative major key to C minor is E flat major. Keep that in mind. So many of us, myself included, especially when you're starting, you mix up the relative with the parallel. So anyway, as I said, there are 3 types of minor scales. The natural minor, which uses the same notes as its relative major. Then there's the harmonic minor, which uses the same notes with a seventh scale degree raised. Then there's the melodic minor, where both the seventh and sixth scale degrees are raised upon ascent, but then upon descent they are reverted to the natural minor. Okay. So here's the layout of the A minor scale, for example. Okay, so I have an A minor scale. Now that's the A below middle C. Notice those ledger lines down there. Okay, so I'm going to start here. E, F, G, A. So that's your A natural minor. Notice these are the same notes, same exact notes that we're using in C major. This is the relative minor. Okay? So like C major was do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. The relative minor of C starts on the sixth scale degree. So the sixth scale degree is La. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. The sixth scale degree in C major is A. So that would make its relative minor A. La, ti, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. Now remember, we're using movable do. We talked about the difference between movable and fixed do in previous episodes. If you do not remember, or if you were not there, please go back or you can do some research on fixed and movable do, the differences in the countries which use them, and tell me what your thoughts on the differences in solfege are. You know how I feel about solfege, and if you don't, please go back to watch previous episodes. Anyway, so that is the A minor scale. Let's see if I can give you a little bit of a computer sample here. Yeah. It's just as I played it before. Okay, so now here's the harmonic minor scale. Notice that the G is sharp in this one. We raised that seventh scale degree. The seventh scale degree has been raised in this one. So the difference in the natural harmonic minor is just that the seventh scale degree is raised. And I hope you guys are going to be able to hear this. That's kind of low, so I'm going to play that for you. No, that's not the right one. That's a G. There's that G sharp. So you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp, A, compared to the natural, which is A, that's a G. A, B, C, D, F, G, A. Hear that difference? The difference, what makes this difference in the scales goes back to Jean-Philippe Rameau and his treatise on harmony. The difference is, well, maybe it was even before that. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it was that. Any music historian, if you know, let me know. Love to have a discussion. But he did say something about chords. We'll talk about later. But the purpose of raising that seventh, it gives us a leading tone. So here's the difference, the layout, once again, between the natural minor and the major. Let me give you a better view on that one, ladies and gentlemen. Bam! There we go. That looks so beautiful. All right. So, again, the difference between the natural minor and the harmonic minor scales is that the seventh degree is raised. And look at the difference here. Everything is the same. All the notes are the same except for that G. The G in the harmonic minor is raised to a G sharp. Okay? So now, fun. Let's get to the melodic minor. The melodic minor, as I said, you have a raised sixth and a seventh on ascent. However, notice on descent that the G and the F have gone natural. Remember the natural symbol? If you don't, go back to that accidental supplement. Yes, I know. Still sitting. Anyway, or shameless marketing. I guess I should say shameless plugging, whatever. Anyway, so with a melodic minor, remember, the 6th and 7th scale degrees are raised upon ascent, but upon descent they are natural. We revert to the natural minor scale. Okay? Let's see if I can get you a little sound sample of that. I'm not sure if that'll work or not. Maybe not. We're going to try that one more time. Let's try that. Yeah, there it is. So that's your A melodic minor. Okay, now so here's the E minor scale, natural and harmonic. There's your E melodic. These are your B, and these are also relative to their major. So the E is relative to G. E minor is relative to G major. B minor is relative to C major, or excuse me, D major. So on and so forth. So now we're getting to enharmonics. Remember, we talked about this a little bit. Enharmonics. What it mean when something is enharmonic, it means a pair of pitches or chords which sound the same but are spelled differently. Examples: pitches, F sharp and G flat. Scales, F sharp and G flat. Chords, F sharp and G flat. I know, I'm being funny, I'm being a little stupid, but I'm going to demonstrate what I mean by that. Now, so remember, when we talked about enharmonics, we said certain keys have two names. So a C sharp it can also be a D flat, right? Enharmonic. So let's focus on the F sharp, G flat. So I said this F sharp can be G flat if just the pitch. The scale, if I call this F sharp and follow that same pattern of whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, here we go. It's F sharp. You think of it as a G sharp, A sharp, then the half, which would be B natural, the only natural in this key. Then you can go back to a whole step, which would be C sharp, then another whole step, which would be D sharp. Now here's where it gets interesting. Another whole step, E sharp. It's not F because you can't have two Fs. F sharp. You cannot, if you, it has to be diatonic, and we're going to get to that definition. You cannot have two of the same letters be an F natural and F sharp. That has to be written as an E sharp in the key of F sharp major. Now, if we think of it as a G flat, here's where it gets interesting. It sounds the same. G flat, A flat, B flat, C flat. Here we go. C flat, what? Yeah. D flat, E flat, F natural. Now it's an F natural. G flat. Okay, but you didn't have a C flat before. See, enharmonics. Same sound, but spelled differently. Enharmonics. Enharmonic spellings can be with the pitch, the scale, or the chord. So now let's talk about the circle of fourths or fifths. Now, this is just the layout of the majors. I got part of a minor one, but we'll see if we get there. So now, the circle of fifths, I want you to look at it. Think of it as kind of an hour, a clock. That C is at 12 o'clock, right? There's no accidental, there's no key signature for C. But we're going to go clockwise and go to G. Notice there's a 1 sharp right there. The key of G major has 1 sharp, which is F. Okay? If we continue on going clockwise, you see there's a D with 2 sharps. The key of D major has 2 sharps, F and C. Continuing on, A has 3, F, C, and G. When it comes to tetrachords, scales, and the circle of fourths and fifths, there's something called the order of sharps and flats. So starting on C, If you follow the tetrachords, if you follow the scales, G major has 1 sharp, D major has 2 sharps, A has 3, E major has 4. Now, following, we're going clockwise, you'll see that there's B with 5 sharps, F sharp has 6, and C sharp has 7. Notice there's some flat keys below them. So let's go back up to 12 o'clock, let's go back up to C, and we're going to go counterclockwise. Look at F, there's 1 flat. B flat has 2 flats. E flat major has 3 flats. A flat major. Now again, these are major scales that we're talking about, major keys, okay? A flat major has 4 flats, D flat major has 5 flats, G flat has 6, C flat has 7. Now notice that C sharp and D flat are lined up, F sharp and G flat are lined up, B and C flat are lined up because they're enharmonic, just as I played that F sharp and that G flat just a little bit ago. They're written differently, but they sound the same. So a C sharp major scale has 7 sharps and sounds like D flat major, which has 5. It depends on how you write it. Just as B major has 5 sharps, but C flat major has 7 flats. But they both sound the same, exactly the same. They're just written or spelled differently. So the order of the sharps of the flats, there's a little mnemonic to remember them. The orders. Father Charles goes down and ends battle, and it kind of lines up with the order of the sharps as you line them up. And if you're doing with the flats, it goes backwards. Battle ends, and down goes Charles's father. You can look that up, and if you have questions, go ahead and let me know. So there's a partial one here. If you look, yeah, I'm not going to go through that one because that one's a little rough. Anyway, so diatonic. A pitch class collection with all 7 letters in the musical alphabet ordered, with the keynote or tonic also being repeated as the 8th scale degree, the octave. The keynote is the only pitch to be repeated, not itch, the only pitch. For example, the 7th scale degree the 7th scale degree of the key of G, F sharp, would not be considered diatonic if it were written as G flat. Just as I said before, you cannot have 2 of the same, just like how we did with F sharp. You can't F sharp major. You can't have an F sharp and an F natural. The F sharp, the F natural is going to be written as an E sharp in the key of F sharp major. That's what makes it diatonic. Because if it's not diatonic, it's chromatic. A chromatic scale is a scale consisting exclusively of half steps, and it uses sharps on ascent typically and flats upon ascent typically. So let's see if I can get this one playing. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the chromatic scale. I feel a need to just demonstrate that before we get into chords. So the chromatic scale. So that'd be C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, so on and so forth. Typically, you go sharp when you're ascending and flat when you are descending. So anyway, now we're going to get into chords. Now, the different types of chords we're going to talk about are triads, clusters. That was quick. Triads, sevenths, and clusters. Okay, first we're going to talk about the triads. So a triad, 3-pitch chords that can be represented as 2/3, one on top of the other. When triads are spelled in thirds, the interval between the lowest pitch of the triad, called the root, and the highest pitch, called the fifth, is a fifth. The middle member of the triad is called the third because it is a third above the root. Because the root is on the bottom, this triad position is called root position. So remember earlier when I laid out the C major scale with all these scale degree names and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. So now these are the applicable triads spelled in their scale degrees. So notice, this time I want you to notice the Roman numerals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1. Okay? Notice the capitals and the lowercase. Okay? I mentioned earlier they're significant. If it's capital, it's going to be a major chord. Just as the letter names are capital, notice the C is capital. Okay? Notice the Roman numeral is a capital 1. But then look at the DM. The second one, the supertonic, the re, the 2. The 2 is lowercase, and so is the DM. The difference is the C, the first chord, is major, and the second is minor. If it's lowercase, it typically denotes a minor chord. Now, quickly look at the 7th. Remember I mentioned something earlier. That 7 is lowercase, but there's that little degree symbol next to it. That degree symbol means diminished. Now, if there's a line going through it, it's a different type of a chord, which means half diminished. And we'll cover that in a little bit. No worries. So let's look at this layout. The 1 is capital, the 4 is capital, the 5 is capital. Everything else is lowercase or diminished. In a major scale, triads, the 1, the 4, and the 5 are majors. Okay? The 2, the 3, and the 6 are minor, and the 7 is diminished. The 1, the 4, and the 5 are referred to as primary chords. So that's why a lot of pop and rock, particularly in the early rock era of the 50s, use the 1-4-5 pattern of chords. And there are a lot, and 1-4-5 still survives today. A lot of people, some people, I refer to it as kind of the Motown sound for a lot of songs. Some people may think of the Ramones if you think of 3 chords, but yeah. But yeah, the 1 is going to be major, your 4 is going to be major, your 5 is going to be major. All right? And notice you have the 2, the 3 are minor, so you have a D minor, your median is minor, 4, and so on and so forth. Okay. So, just to give you a little bit of a demonstration, let's see if, how about I just play something, play what's on here for you. All right. So that first triad is a C major chord. So that's C, E, G. Okay? 1, 3, 5. Now, we talked about it spelling in thirds. Notice how C to E is a third. We talked about the intervals in the previous episode. C to E is a major third, right? Notice that E to G is also a third, but it's a minor third. So if you have a minor third on top of a major third, it builds a major triad. Okay? So that's your C major. Now let's look at that C minor. You have a C natural, an E flat, and a G natural. C minor. C major, C minor. Major, minor. 1, 3, 5, 1 flat 3, 5. So C to E flat, that's still a third, but it's a minor third. C to E flat is a minor third. E flat to G is a major third. Notice the major third is now on top of the minor third. That is how we build a minor triad. You have a minor third underneath a major third is a minor triad. So now let's look at that C augmented. You have C natural, E natural, G sharp. So you have a 1, 3, sharp 5. I used to have a friend years ago. Whenever he heard that in class, he would just kind of look up like you were a Hitchcock movie or something, like you were in a Hitchcock movie. Dude, it's hilarious. But anyway, so C augmented, and sometimes you'll see that like written as a C or a plus, C with a plus sign, as with the diminished, you'll see with a degree sign. So now the C diminished. Lastly, you have a C natural, E flat, and a G flat. So 1 flat 3 flat 5. 1 flat 3 flat 5. So just to review, C major 1 3 5, C minor 1 flat 3 5, C augmented, 1 3 sharp 5, C diminished 1 flat 3 flat 5. And those are qualities of triads. Seventh chords. Notice there are 4 here. Because if you have a 1 3 5 with a triad, guess what you have when you add another one? You have a seventh. Because from C to, look at this first chord. There's a C major seventh scale, a C major seventh chord. So that's C, E, G, B natural. Isn't that pretty? Major sevenths are so pretty. They sound so pretty. So you have a C natural, E natural, G natural, B natural, right? That's that first chord you see there. Because from C to the B is a seventh. C to B flat is also a seventh, but we're going to get to that type of chord in just a little bit. Notice I laid out the qualities here. I don't usually lay out qualities of sevenths, but they're different types of within a scale, within relation to a scale, I should say. But yeah, we're gonna keep it moving. I'll still play it for you. How about that? It's an interesting style. So on and so forth. The D sharp. I might need to look at that one. Okay, so now look at these seventh chords. Check this out. So as I said, the C major seventh, just C, E, G, B. Let me, can you see me? Yeah, you can. Okay. So now let's look at the C minor seventh. So that's what? 1, 3, 5, 7. Like how we were doing 1, 3, 5 before. 1, 3, 5, 7 in relation to the scale. So now the C minor is 1 flat 3 5 flat 7. See that C minor 7? Let's see. C major 7. Let's see if I can get that better fingering. Maybe if I sat properly around my piano. That's better. C minor 7. All right. So that's 1 flat 3 5 flat 7. So now I want you to look at this thing that reads C7. That is a dominant seventh chord, and that's typically what we play in relation to, instead of a triad even, we play a dominant seventh chord. Now that's a 1, 3, 5, flat 7. And those usually want to resolve. This is usually what we refer to as a 5-7 chord, because it's a dominant seventh, just like the fifth scale degree in any key is the dominant. So we think of it like this. If we play a C dominant 7, a C7 chord, and it's the dominant chord of a scale, then the dominant is a fifth, in which scale is C the fifth? That is where it will resolve to. And in this key, the key to which C is 5 is F. Typically, that's where it will resolve to in common practice. But Welcome to the 21st century, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing is common in music anymore. Anyway, so moving on, moving on. Actually, just to reiterate, that dominant 7 is 1, 3, 5, flat 7. Okay. So looking at these last two chords, looking at the very last one, there's that C diminished. Okay. But remember, I had said something before. Notice there's a line going through the penultimate one. So the one on second from the right is what we would call a C half diminished. And then the last one, the one furthest most right, would be fully diminished. All right? So that half diminished would be C, E flat, G flat, B flat. So 1, flat 3, flat 5, flat 7. That's half diminished. And this goes back to the discussion of stacking the thirds. Okay? Now look at the fully diminished. Notice that B is a double flat. Double flat, remember, it's just it's a whole step lower. So that double flat, that fully diminished, half diminished, fully diminished. That's a difference. Now, we're going to talk about chord inversions. So chords can be inverted, and this is where we're talking about. I said I was going to mention Rameau one more time. His treatise of harmony laid out how before inversions were thought of different chords, but they're not. So root position, you see here, there's a C major chord, C, E, G. What an inversion means is if I take that C and put it an octave higher and leave the E in the root, it's still a C major chord, but now it's inverted. That is what Rameau's treatise laid out. Before that, it was thought to be an E chord, or it was a different chord, but it's now thought of as an inverted chord. So, again, now if I put the G in the bass, that's second inversion. It's still a C major chord, but now it's inverted. C major, root position, first inversion, second inversion. Same deal with triads, with the seventh chords, but you have another inversion. So you have root position, first inversion, second inversion, and third inversion. And then you have chordal clusters, which kind of look like that, you know. So if I wanted to play something like that, that could be considered a chordal cluster. All right. So I want to thank you guys for joining me on this episode. I really, really appreciate you coming through and just saying hey.